Welcome to Between Two Pastries, a not-so-typical nutrition podcast. Nicole and Annie are licensed and registered dietitians. Join them as they discuss hot nutrition topics, challenge popular beliefs, and have a blast doing it. Here are your hosts, Nicole and Annie.
Welcome to Between Two Pastries, everybody. This is Nicole.
Hey, everyone. It's Annie.
Yeah, so Annie and I just had this conversation about our topic, and we realized, oh man, we should have just been pressing record the whole time.
Yeah, right.
So, bringing up kind of a common client phrase that sometimes people will say. So, just to explain kind of the situation, I had a client who I've been working with for actually quite some time. This individual came in. Really just wanting to become stronger, which is also interesting, wanting to become stronger, have more energy. And, they are very active in their chosen sport, and they are in their mid 60s. And I love that because it's like very cool, you're super active. Let's support that. So anyway, we made a lot of changes. Really just in increasing, obviously, all the things that would help support their current intake. Anyway, feeling great, having really nice results as far as increasing muscle mass, again, just feeling stronger, performing really well, the whole thing. So I've been seeing this individual for quite some time, and all of a sudden, this last time I saw them, came in, did the whole body comp thing. And I was kind of floored because I thought, what the heck happened? So again, I don't really, I don't allude to anything when I do that, because that's really, I don't talk about numbers per se with my clients. I just know what's going on. So I said, well, tell me about what's been going on for you. And she just said, I just can't eat all that food. And so I was like, well, that's just such an interesting comment, we've never talked about this. I mean, sure, she's kind of mentioned like she's not used to it, but she's doing it anyway and feeling so good. And I thought,
yeah,
well, how long did you all of a sudden stop doing what we've talked about, because you've been doing so well? And it hadn't been all that long, but because she's so active, it was like the body immediately got stressed out. Went into a mode, dropped muscle. In turn, she added body fat, but that's what happens when your body's under stress. See, I knew that was a complete stressing. So I asked her, I'm like, well, what are you doing? Completely resorted to old habits, eating like little to nothing. I mean, literally little to nothing. I'm talking about a single yogurt before a 2-hour intense workout and a piece of toast.
Well, but Nicole, you and I are sitting here that's nothing. But our listeners are going to hear she had a yogurt before her activity and a piece of toast after. That seems normal.
Yeah.
And that's the part where people hear us say little to nothing. And I assume listeners think we're talking about someone with an eating disorder, and it's not. This is very normal for us to hear that someone, if they eat before a workout, it's very little.
So the whole clincher about this whole thing is, I was telling Annie how I'm walking out the door with this individual, just saying our goodbyes, little chit chat. And she turns and looks at me, because she's never talked about this stuff. And she just says, it's so hard to change. It's so hard to change the belief that I shouldn't eat so much food. And I think that's what's so interesting. It's let go of, I'm feeling amazing. My workouts are solid and stronger. I'm competing so much better. I'm recovering so much better. Let go of all of that and just focus all of a sudden, why did this shift for her? What the heck happened? Because she doesn't talk about things. What the heck would have happened, right? That would have all of a sudden make her go, I shouldn't eat this food. That's what's so fascinating to me. And I thought, oh my gosh, you're saying the key piece of information as you're walking out the door.
Right. Right.
Like, this is something we really need to have a conversation about. So Annie and I were talking about how there's such a, everybody has a very skewed outlook of what looks like too much. And I think that that's the thing, when you're so focused on external things, and when you connect certain images with meaning something, something that you don't want, or something that scares you,
right?
Again, you completely lost connection with what your physical body is saying, right? Like, yes, please, can we keep eating? And your fear brain takes over and says, oh my gosh, we can't. What am I doing?
Well, and oftentimes that rational versus irrational brain is because of, one, comparison. You're comparing yourself to what someone else is eating of the same caliber. So if someone else is eating that chicken meal and it happens to be less than you, and they happen to be thinner than you, you're going to try to compete essentially to do the same thing, because in the irrational part of our brain, we think, if I do what they do, then I'll be like that person or look like that person, right? So there's that competitive component. There's also the, like you mentioned, the word external. So I think of things that we hear or see within social media, at gyms, at grocery stores, at, wherever, on Netflix, all of these external contributors of false information that are they're basically playing into our irrational brain, right? They're causing more fears. We've talked on here about fat phobia. That's what it is, because there's also food phobia, right? Like, we've created this fear of food in general, like it's a monster coming to get us, and it's not, right? So, because of all of those external contributors, our irrational brain is quadrupling in size to our rational brain, and it just keeps suppressing that rational side to the point where we don't even think logically anymore. And I was, prior to recording, I was telling you the story of how an acquaintance ran the Lakefront Marathon on October 3rd and now has to, start a diet cleanse and all of the things because of the marathon weight post marathon. And and then of course, like trying to get pity and calling themselves fat and all of this negative stuff. And it's like, A, you sound like a moron. And two, this none of this is based in a rational state of mind. None of it.
Right.
It doesn't even make sense when you take a step back. And the fact that I know this person has been educated on the fact that when you do a marathon or a race or some sort of large effort, you retain water, your weight is going to go up because of that cellular, physiological change that's occurring within your body. Stress is going, and if you didn't eat enough, stress is going up even more. You're going to see that change in fat mass and lean muscle mass, right? Like, you could be catabolic at that point. So it's frustrating because those then are posted. That story's posted for the world to see. And now people see it and they internalize it like, well, oh, okay, so when I do a marathon or I do this, I got to make sure I don't gain this weight and I don't want to be like this, and they go nuts. And so their irrational brain keeps growing because of all of these external things, instead of turning to their rational side. Again, I feel like we keep repeating this, but am I hungry? Am I not hungry? Am I satisfied? Am I not satisfied? What is fueling my body for activity and what is not?
Right.
And just asking these basic questions and stop worrying about it. Again, another, example, an acquaintance did a 100-miler a couple weeks ago, and she's not even 1 week post 100-miler and is already, I have to start hiking and running again because my weight's going up. Mm-hmm. You're doing so much more damage to your body by doing that. 100%.
And that's the piece that people don't get.
And their fat mass goes up, but because the scale says something different, and we talk about this in our book about why the scale lies.
Correct.
and you get a false representation of what's going on. So you do your race, your effort, your triathlon, your whatever, you see an increase in weight. So you stop eating. Okay. And that increase in weight is generally water, right? So then you stop eating and doing things that are helpful to you. You start exercising, your stress goes up, your muscle goes down, you start being catabolic, your fat mass goes up. So the number on the scale likely ends up lower than what it really could be. Mm-hmm. And you're under this false, thinking that you've actually lost a little weight. And then you go into another event and you can't finish it because you don't have the energy because you lost a lot of the muscle. Mm-hmm. Oh, but then it's the food. It's because I ate too much food. Mm-hmm. Again, these are the things that we keep hearing on repeat, right? Yeah. So it's really interesting because, as you talk about your client, it hits home a bit because I think it's something that you obviously and I obviously hear on a regular basis. And I hope that listeners can relate to that final piece that she mentioned there. Mm-hmm. It's sad, right? Like it's sad that irrational part of our brain is so powerful.
I know. Kind of going back to so these are some of the things we kind of talk a little bit about in the book is, connecting again with our bodies. And so I had said to Annie, it would be a really fun experiment to have like a panel of people blindfolded, so they aren't distracted by the actual volume, right? They aren't already casting judgment on what they're perceiving and already formulating concepts in their mind of what that means to them and calculating in their mind how much of that they're actually going to eat, right? So if we could blindfold, no one sees, and everybody is just given all the time in the world to literally eat their food, it would be amazing to see then, taking the blindfolds off, what that actually, what each individual ended up eating. Because if you're blindfolded, you take that whole, perspective away. Mm-hmm. You're going to be way more connected to how you feel.
Well, and it's basically, if you want a real life representation of this experiment you're talking about, go into a K3 or K4 classroom during lunchtime and watch them eat, because that's what they do.
Right.
That's what they're doing, is eating as much as they want of their lunch, maybe more, maybe a little. They're eating at a pace that is normal to them. They're, clowning around and eating with their fingers and smiling, and nothing is judgmental at all.
At all. That's the whole thing.
Right.
That's the whole thing.
It's a pretty cool thing, right?
Yeah.
Like when you can actually see that happen. And I think that can be really eye-opening to people, that, again, the only reason that changes a 3 or 4-year-old's perspective about food is external.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the only thing. It's the influence of, or
parents,
the
coaches,
behavior of others, because they want to grow up and be like someone.
Right.
So, you are a product of your environment.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Right. So the more we can break away from stupid things on social media, mm-hmm. And all of the articles that are not true, and all of the, all of those things,
correct,
the more helpful, or the more likely you're going to end up in a place of joy. Absolutely. I mean, ultimately, like, our goal isn't to put you on a diet or anything. Our goal is for you to just be happy. Like, it would be amazing if the number of clients of ours was cut to nothing because people actually were eating and finding joy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, that's the whole point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what's happening, and maybe this is a side note, we're looking to open a couple more eating disorder programs at our location. We can't find therapists or nurses who are building directors and managers who are comfortable with that population. And I almost said it today in a meeting. The only way you can be comfortable dealing with actual food issues is when you don't have food issues yourself.
Yeah, when you deal with your own first.
Right. The level of discomfort that the group, of people
showing. Yeah.
This,
wow.
It was mind-blowing how uncomfortable they are.
Wow.
I was really taken aback by that. And it's not to say that you can't be a good therapist or nurse or all of these things. And you know what I mean, whatever. But like, to work with the population, you have to have, I don't know, a comfort with food and size and all of those things. And there's a huge level of discomfort with that stuff for a lot of people.
Yes.
And again, it's when you find those practitioners who are, you know, doing the diets and the cleanses and the things and 20-day programs and all of that stuff, it's that same concept of they're not comfortable, right? That's a projection of their own discomfort. So again, circling back, big circle back to what you were originally talking about.
Yep.
But you have to really truly believe in the process.
Yes.
And you have to believe that food is okay in order for behavior change to occur.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's not a habit. Like, it's not, you're just doing it to placate, right? Like, because it's something new. But like, once you truly believe that you can have ice cream in your house or peanut butter or whatever it might be, it's just so much easier. Does that make sense? Am I making sense?
Yeah, of course you're making sense.
It's just really interesting, the discomfort with food, which is, again, something that is a human, like,
it's a necessity. Yeah, I know. It is really mind-boggling, but I think what's more mind-boggling is how more complicated it has become.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's what it's shocking and sad at the same time, you know, anyway.
Well, and you take it to another level. Like, I mean, we could say food is a necessity, and then someone over here is going to say, well, it's a necessity. I get that, but I don't need to eat processed foods. What's a necessity? Okay.
Yeah,
so
I get that. And I guess to that point, if you don't need to eat processed food, that's your choice. But if you so happen to have to, because out of necessity,
right,
then, you know, just so you know, nothing bad will happen.
Right. But there's a belief, though,
like, it's okay. You're going to be okay.
It's just sad that there's that value put on eating.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
But again, that all comes down to not being connected with your physical self. If you're connected, then you know what you need. You're not in judgment of what that is.
Yeah. How do people know when they're connected and when they're not connected? You know what I mean? I mean, how long does it take to become connected with your body? I mean, I would say for me, it probably, how old am I? It probably took me a solid 4 or 5 years to get to that point.
Yeah. And I would, and that's an interesting thing that you bring up, because I had this conversation with a new client today, and she had actually asked the same thing. She said, you know, I was in this intuitive eating group on social media, and then everybody was just gaining weight. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is awful. That's a whole nother, that's a whole nother topic. And I said, well, chances are, there's probably some other stuff going on in there. And you don't really know what's happening and how intuitive they really have been.
Yeah. And again, it's social media.
It's social media. And that's the thing. And I said, you know, to actually eat intuitively when you haven't for so long is a huge process.
Oh, it's such an undertaking.
And I said, it's you know, it's like you've gotta, you know, I know when I'm working with somebody, it's like, sometimes we have to work on some other things over here first. And then we start migrating over into these concepts, you know, like, it's not just a thing where it's like, okay, I'm just going to decide to do this and then it's done. It's like, you can, but understand that, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's so hard. Yeah. It's hard to describe.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. And it took me 4 to 5 years to find that connection with my own body. And but every day that you go on without doing that is another, you know, I mean, that's just a waste of a day, right? Like, you have the opportunity to start working on it now.
Yeah.
And absolutely. It is a journey, and it's a lot of failure. And that, you have to just, that's good. Failure is helpful. It's how you learn.
Well, it's how you learn. And that's the whole thing. It's how you understand, what your personal limits and needs are and what feels right to you,
So if your client goes back to her previous eating style of a yogurt before, her activity and then toast afterwards, I mean, is that a conscious choice that she wants to do for the rest of her life? Or is that just a hiccup, a quick failure, and now we're going to change back?
Yeah. Well, and I don't even want to label it as a failure, as really it was just a choice that she decided to make because she got stuck in her head. So yeah. I think the thing is I want to figure out what happened, because something triggered her.
Right. What was that?
Something happened where it was like, but we've been doing, like, I don't know why.
It hadn't been an issue.
Right. So I think that something, she was triggered. A belief was triggered. And I don't know where it came from. I don't know, but hopefully we'll get things back on track.
Yeah. I mean, that's all very true. I mean, that's how it works, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you can develop all of these new habits and behaviors, and all it takes is one person to say you look a certain way, or why are you eating that, or whatever.
Well, and
it's a fall apart.
In her sport community, like a lot of sport communities, right?
Oh, God, yeah.
There's so much talk. I mean, nonsense talk, but there's a lot of talk. Mm-hmm. So it's I have no idea, and I'm the next time that we do talk, I will definitely, ask. So. Right.
Yeah. No, sports communities are terrible. I don't even like saying I'm a dietitian, because you constantly are listening to that just everyone's restricting without even thinking that they're restricting.
Absolutely.
And then they're consuming way too much alcohol and way too much stuff at nighttime. Because it's like there's so much fear with eating breakfast, but there's no fear in that late night stuff.
Right. In the late night stuff, or the bottle of whatever.
Yeah, the wine. Oh boy.
Yeah. So there will definitely be a part 2 with this, because we're going to discuss. And but just for managing our pod time for everybody, we'll bring this one to a close.
Good.
So any comments, let us know, guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Have questions you want to hear discussed on the show? Find us on Facebook or visit between2pastries.com and drop us a line. Want to support the show? Find us on Patreon for exclusive content. If you love the show, find us on iTunes or your favorite podcast platform. Hit the subscribe button and leave us a review.